Welcome to Pig Pods. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success, wherever you go. Here are your hosts, Angelos and Mo.
Welcome to Your Success Podcast. I'm Mo.
And I'm Angelos. Mo, we've been releasing a lot of interviews lately, which is great, but we wanted to record a couple of discussions between the two of us.
We certainly have, and we're sitting in the office in Plymouth, the Moorview property office, and it's absolutely freezing outside. The beast from the east, is that what they're calling it?
Yeah, reference to the weather as opposed to anything else.
Weather from Siberia.
Yeah.
And we are live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. Although with the algorithm change, there's probably only one person watching. So
hello, Mum.
Yeah. So today we are discussing the pain of letting go and delegation in your business.
But Mo, nobody's ever going to run my business as well as I can.
Well, you may think that, Angelos, but maybe they can, and maybe, depending on what skill set they've got, they might be able to even do it better.
But why is that?
Well, so a few kind of real examples. Maybe they can be trained specifically, so they might have a skill set that you might not have as a business owner. They might have very niche specific skill sets, so something like accountancy or bookkeeping, something like that. They could bring new ideas, so a lot of the time you might recruit or get an outsourcer that's worked in another business, so they then bring their ideas to your business. They might have different skill sets, so something that you don't necessarily enjoy doing, but they're actually really good at and they're actually very skilled at, that are better suited. And I think ultimately for me, they're going to give it more time. So rather than it being 5% of your day or 1% of your day, the task or the activity they're doing will be 50% of their day or be 75% of their day. So the focus on it will be totally different.
And they'll probably be a lot more efficient than you. So for example, with Your Success Podcast, we employ full-time media consultancy, social delegate, and they look after all of our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc., etc. Now, you and I, we're pretty good with these things, but they are very good. Yeah. And they do it a lot quicker and probably a lot more imaginative than what we do. So it frees up a lot of our time to then focus on the higher level stuff.
Yeah, I think you have to focus on what you're good at, what you bring the most value to doing, and just outsource the rest of the stuff. So another good example is the video editing and the audio editing that we do that we have done for the podcast. That's all outsourced. Is it something we could do? Well, the video probably just about, the audio maybe as well. But would it take ages and would it be completely inefficient? Yeah,
so
I think so.
The question we have to ask ourselves is, what is a better use of our time? Lining up future interviews with great people, working out a business strategy.
Angelos, being awesome takes a lot of time and energy.
I feel you, man.
I
feel you.
But yeah, you're exactly right. Lining up interviews, just speaking to potential partners for the podcast. Writing the content
versus editing a few sound files for maybe a couple of hours. It's just you're not comparing like for like here. So you as a business owner, although in the beginning you may not necessarily have the money to pay someone, but ultimately you do need to have an eye on the future, and that is you working backwards and removing yourself from these low level tasks.
So Angelos, how would you work out what tasks to do yourself and what to delegate?
Well, there's two things to consider here. Number one is what your target value is per hour. So what's minimum wage at the moment? Is it £7.50? I think it is off the top of my head. Probably.
I don't know, but we definitely pay it.
Yeah.
No, we did. I don't actually know what it is.
And in 10 years' time, when people listen to this, go £7.50.
Yeah.
Back in my day.
And then the living wage as well.
Yeah, the living wage is about £10 or something like that. So you need to work out what your target value is per hour, and
so is that? Would you say that's what you're earning now, what you want to earn?
So how I work it out is that you need to work out what your metric is now. So you need a base standard. So how I would do it is a very loose calculation. You'd work out what is your total year income.
Right.
And then you divide that by the amount of hours that you work over the course of the year. So you work it out per month and then by week, and then you work it out like that. And Last time I checked, it was in the 3 figures. I won't say exactly what it is, but I am looking to take that to 4 or 5 figures per hour, and there's no reason why I can't. But I need a base metric to work it out. So that's a task for the listeners at home. If you don't know what your hourly rate is within your business, then perhaps you need to measure it.
And how would you use that? So then you'd say, I'm worth £10 an hour. So anything that's less than that, you would outsource, so you don't fill your time with those tasks.
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, for example, sometimes as a business owner, you get stuck into the business, right? So, for example, many years ago, we had a few property refurbs. So we turned this really stinky old house into something really quite special. And to save time and I guess a little bit of money, I decided to get out on site and help the carpenter by doing some of the carpentry. So I'm not saying I'm very good and I'm not for hire at the moment if anyone's interested, but I was helping him with basic tidying up and cutting skirting boards, mitre joints, all that kind of stuff. And I enjoy it, but you work out how much you're paying the carpenter versus what your hourly rate is. It's not worth me being there. I need to focus on raising more finance, finding future projects. That is what brings in the tens of thousands, if not the hundreds of thousands of pounds in the long run, versus saving maybe £10 an hour helping the carpenter. So you really do need to sometimes take a step back and work your way out of the business as opposed to being stuck down in the low level kind of stuff.
But it's quite hard, isn't it, when you're starting to justify the spend and you think you can't really afford that. So how do you go about actually being able to afford that, whether it's that first employee or that outsourcer or whatever?
Well, that's a tricky one because a lot of people say that. It's all very well, Angelos, saying that you need to outsource it or find someone, but I can't afford it. And I think you need to just seriously think, why can't you afford it? Is it because you're not generating enough sales? Is it because you don't have enough projects in the pipeline? Or perhaps you have a halfway house approach where you don't employ a full-time member of staff and you outsource something, maybe for an hour a week or 10 hours a week or whatever you can afford. Work out what you can afford, what is your budget, and work backwards from there. And then by releasing that 1 hour, 10 hours a week, you then reclaim those hours back that you can then reinvest into higher level income generating activities, and then that way you grow your business quicker. Okay, it'd be a lot better if you had a full-time employee in your office all the time, you could work together, but at least it's the first step. And then you compound that time that you're generating more projects, more sales, whatever it may be, so that you can actually afford maybe a part-time member of staff, and you grow from there.
So I think there's a couple of interesting points there. Probably one is that potentially an outsourcer might cost you more per hour than a full-time employee because the nature of outsourcing is that they might not have work all the time, so they need to charge a little bit more for that. But that's fine because you haven't got to fill their whole time with work. You can get them sort of pay as you go, like an hour at a time or whatever.
And the national insurance, pensions, holiday pay, sick pay, all that kind of stuff. Don't need to worry about it.
And then the other thing I think that you said there that I want to pick up on is actually reinvesting your time that you get back. So it's all very well and good getting 5 or 10 hours a week back through outsourcing it to someone and paying them 5 or 10 quid an hour. Obviously £5 if it's an outsourcer that's abroad, not necessarily in the UK, but actually reinvesting that time rather than just spending it. So an example of spending time would be on Facebook, which I think everyone is a little bit guilty of at times, and the lights have gone off, which is good.
This is why I need to delegate the build process to someone. I'm just going to wave my arms to try and...
This is embarrassing. There we go. It's not our special mood lighting for the new Success podcast.
No, that's another podcast, and we do pay our bills on time.
So reinvesting time. So spending time would be something like on Facebook or whatever, but actually investing time would be, like you said, going out, getting more sales, getting more customers, working on your branding, getting finance, raising finance and things like that. But I think as well, there isn't just a distinction between spending time and investing time. I think you've also got sort of family time as well. So if actually you release 10 hours of your week, if you spend 5 of those on income producing activities, and then 5 with your family, then that's pretty good, because as long as you can generate enough in that 5 to cover the 10 hours of outsourced work plus more, you've actually bought some of your own time back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really important point, because a lot of the time that when we speak with people about success and what success means to them is spending time with their family. If you can release 5 hours from your week from working because you've outsourced it to someone else, and you spend that time with your kids, you only have that one window, shall we say, in that period of their growth, their development. That's a big gain.
Yeah.
And then that will further encourage you to try and release more time.
Yeah.
So it can compound very quickly, and then before you know it, you have a part-time, full-time, and then you have a whole team around you. And you think of all the hours that they're working towards your vision, as opposed to just me and my 24 hours. You have, let's say, a team of 5, and you've got 100+ hours working just for your vision. I think that's an amazing thing.
And ultimately, you can just spend time on what you love doing and what you really want to do, and then you can fill your life with activity that you actually want to be doing, and like you say, working towards your own vision, which I think is really, really cool. So we're going to talk a little bit about staff and outsourcers, and then I think come on to like systems and processes as well, because that's a really good way to manage that. So we've talked about being able to afford staff, but what about actually trusting the staff to do the job? Is there an element of the fact that you have to allow them to make some mistakes, kind of like small controlled mistakes, so they can learn? The same with outsourcers and stuff.
Yeah, systems and processes are very important there.
Yeah.
I know we're going to look at that in a sec, but if you have a very clear systems document and then drive down on the processes. So I found with outsourcing, you need to be very specific, like anally specific, if you know what I mean, because if there's a little room for doubt, they will take the wrong path. Not intentionally, but unfortunately you've left it vague, but then you go back and you revisit your documents, make sure you don't make that mistake again. So what I do, I tend to video record my screen, I then narrate it, and I say, John, please do X, Y, and Z.
Welcome to your Success Podcast.
Yeah, exactly, my beautiful radio voice. And then it breaks down every single click and why they're clicking there. It's not just a matter of follow this. I want them to have a little bit of initiative. And then you send that video to them, 5-minute video. It's a training video effectively, and you're building up a library. So whether you do it once for John, and then perhaps John moves on, or you have John and Jane, and then Jane can just watch the video as well, perhaps with a few tweaks as you learn as well. So it's a very efficient way of training your staff. And I do like that way of doing things.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's really cool. And we've got an outsourcer called Jeff. Hi Jeff, you might be watching now. Don't know what time it is out there. And he's brilliant, and he's helping us with the podcast as well. So he's doing some transcriptions, I can't even say it.
Transcriptions.
Maybe you could transcribe that. So he's doing some transcription work for us, as well as the stuff that he does with Morvie Property as well. And you just have to get it documented down. And yes, there is a bit of a barrier because he's in the Philippines, and you can't just pick up the phone, or you can't just sit across the desk from him. But as long as you've documented the process really, really well, he's absolutely brilliant, and he's really, really good.
And staff will make mistakes.
Yeah.
Probably it's your fault.
Yeah.
So you can't take it out there, and you can't bring him up and say, "You mother trucker, why did you do this?" Just step back and think, why has this happened? How can we reevaluate the system and the process and make sure it doesn't happen again? And sometimes, I hate to say it, so this is away from outsourcing, but this is something relevant to what I do. You do have to let people make mistakes. Yeah. It's very hard to do it because you can see they're walking into an ambush, should we say. I'm not a soldier, by the way, it's just a reference. And you just got to make sure that when they do make that mistake in a controlled environment, so it doesn't destroy your business or your reputation, you just sit back and you review it with them afterwards and just see, what went wrong, how can I help you further, and that kind of thing. Yeah. And hopefully, they learn. And
I think it's back to your point about understanding why as well. I think you can say as many times as you want in a process document, this is the way it should be, but once someone's done it maybe wrong themselves and they understand why you're saying to do it a certain way based on your experience, because you've written that process document from your own experience, that then maybe hammers it home a little bit more why it should be a certain way. Or alternatively, they do it a different way and it's actually a better way.
Well, yeah, this is why sometimes you should employ lazy people, because they will find the most efficient way of getting a task done.
Yeah.
People have different ways of working, and we can all learn. No one has the right way, but if you can pick up different ways from different people in your team, for example, with social media, they may have some really cool tricks that you can employ in your own business and your own personal life. Brilliant. We're all contributing to the same purpose, and that's help drive the vision of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's our thoughts on delegation and outsourcing and really just letting go. And I think that's why we sort of called this episode The Pain of Letting Go, because it really does feel painful sometimes just wanting to let it go, but the realisation is you've only got so many hours in the day and you literally can't do everything, and you have to just let it go. And it is painful, because if it's your own business and it's something that's leading towards your vision, I haven't got kids, but I imagine it's like having kids. It's like your own like kind of baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And trust is a massive thing. But if you have your systems and processes in place and you explain to them where you're going, they're aligned with your vision, then it should work out pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's our thoughts. We want to know your thoughts and experiences on letting go within your own business. Drop us an email on hello@yoursuccesspodcast.com or get in touch on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram.
So thank you for listening to Your Success Podcast. Please click subscribe, leave us a review, and we look forward to your comments on the Your Success Podcast Facebook page or our YouTube channel. So I've been Angelos.
And I've been Mo.
And see you again on the next episode of Your Success Podcast.
You've been listening to Pig Pods. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.pig.network.